Alright, now you've successfully trained your team of agents and are ready to format your submission. There are two types of submissions, and the one we're going to be looking at today is how to format in the zip format. So first thing, if you haven't already done it, log in or sign up and create an account. Once you're logged in, navigate to the submissions. You can see we have our two submission options. We're going to be looking at the zip file submission for this. The submissions page is going to show you your, it's going to list out your current active submission, which will be your last successful submission. And so that'll be, if you submit something, compiles correctly, it plays the round robin and gets a score, and it ranks first. Then you submit another iteration of that. Let's call it number 2. And it scores worse. It's going to use that worst scoring policy in the round robin and make that your new submission. It's going to overwrite your old one. So if you want to use that older one, keep a save of it and upload that at a later time. And then it'll also list out all the submissions that aired out in some way. And then in that output, you'll have some text representing what that output could have been, which might help you debug what the problem might be. But we'll be looking at how we can make our own zip file and submit it into the website. So we're going to assume that you have a folder of a saved out policy. In this case, I have 3 saved out policies that I'm going to want to load in. I'm going to copy this folder. And for simplicity, I'm going to do it all in this competition info. And so inside that, I'm going to open up a solution.py folder file and a genconfig file. In this genconfig file, what we're going to want to change is any of the observation parameters that we might have changed earlier. And this is important because we're going to need this information when we run your agent to hand it the correct observation. If this doesn't match what you were training in, then your agent will never be able to play the game and it will keep throwing you errors with observation not fitting into your network. But the second step after you adjust the config file is to open up solution.py, and inside that we have the constructor. And in this case, since we're using a deep reinforcement learning approach, we're going to just load in that saved out policy. And so here we have policy.from checkpoint, which is going to load it in, and then we have OS path, and we see that working directory. This is stuff that we're using to handle the submission. Don't change any of that. The only thing that you're going to want to change is this path to your policy in carrots. That's what you're going to be changing. So we're going to update this to be the path to our policy, which is just going to be iter0 folder. Again, if we go back to here, we have iter0 folder. Inside that we have policies, and then we have the actual policies themselves, those folders there. And then we're going to do that for all 3. Alright, now that we have that done, we've loaded in all the policies in the constructor. We can change our compute action to calculate that agent actions, however our implementation for the competition needs it to work. In our case, we just have 3 policies matched to 3 agents. One thing to keep in mind here is your agents need to be able to play on both sides. If you're using the full observation normalized or the full observation dictionary, the playing on blue team, deploying on red team, training on red team, deploying on blue team, handled for you. We handle that switch of field sides because observation space is independent of the side. But if you're using the global state in training or global state for a heuristic, you need to make sure that your agents will still work on both the blue side and the red side. That being how you calculate stuff, or making a team of agents for red side and a team of agents for blue side. If you're using that global state, that's just one thing to keep in mind. The other thing here is the teams are split up like this. It's 0, 1, and 2 for the blue side, 3, 4, and 5 for the red side. So in our case, we want policy 1 to always map to 0 or 3, policy 2 to be 1 or 4, policy 2 or 3 to be 2 and 5. So we have that set out here with those if statements. Then we're going to call it compute action. We're going to pass in the observation space that we're using. And Ray returns a bunch of different arguments, and we only want the first one because that is the action that our policy outputted. So that's all we're going to return. Compute action is going to give you the agent ID that you're calculating for, and all you need to do is output the action that that agent should be taking. So now that we have that all saved up, the last thing that we have to do, zip everything up and submit it to the website. So we're going to highlight all this. We're going to do compress to zip. And that's all you have to do to format your submission to a zip. If you can't just right click and send it to zip, what you can do is on Linux, if you have, or Mac, if you have zip installed as a command, you can type zip, the output file that you name that you want, in our case would be example.zip, and then it'll be iter0, that's the -r iter0, folder of all our policies, and we want everything inside that folder. Genconfig and solution.py, and that'll output everything that you need in that zip format. The last thing that you have to do, navigate over here, click choose your file. You can drag it in onto that button, either works, is upload it. And what we should see is we should see that it was sent to queue for processing. If you don't submit a zip, some other type of file, or it's not constructed right, you'll get an error message here. So we see that we have something in process for queue. And once it's been processed, we'll see the output.